Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, we are talking about enterprise project management and how it serves businesses. Despite the name, enterprise project management has few similarities to the types of traditional project management that many people have experienced in their working lives. Our guest, Matt Mong of PlanAutomate, helps us understand the differences and why enterprise project management brings projects into the fold, so to speak, with core ERP functions to put project work at the center of the business. PlanAutomate is the sponsor of this episode, and Matt and I discuss industry scenarios where enterprise project management excels, some of the challenging requirements that a solution like PlanAutomate can meet, and some of the steps organizations can take to move away from siloed projects. All right. Well, Matt, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Can we maybe start by having you just give a bit of an introduction for our listeners?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Matt Mong. I'm the VP of Marketing and Sales at PlanAutomate. So I've been there for about 8 years now. We're one of Microsoft's premier partners for project-centric companies on the Dynamics 365 Finance ERP platform.
All right. Excellent. Well, great to have you. And yeah, I think this is really a chance to really kind of help myself and any of our listeners really understand what enterprise project management really means today, what it's all about, and what more they should really understand about it today. So can you start by sort of sharing more about the history of maybe what enterprise project management is and sort of why it's important for certain industries?
Sure. Well, enterprise project management sort of has grown since early stages of project management, project management being, more managing projects and individually in sort of their own silo, versus enterprise project management is about bringing all the sort of project management exercises and disciplines within the context of an enterprise. And that means connecting all the different processes and data across all what an enterprise needs. So it's much more holistic in nature than just strict project management. And so it's been a growing sort of term out there that has been used in many different areas, but we've sort of adopted it as our product moniker because that's sort of what we do is to bring enterprise project management to project center companies. So meaning the ETO type manufacturing, engineer to order, construction, architecture, engineering, professional services, all those types of companies that are sort of enterprise level. They do project management at their core. Therefore, it really makes sense for them to have really enterprise project management as central to their business processes and also their technology systems as well.
All right, great. And can we talk just a little bit more about maybe what the history of PlanAutomate looks like and how that sort of fits into what you were just describing about the overall need?
I mean, PlanAutomate, we got started back in 2007. Actually, our former name was Adika, but we changed it to PlanAutomate this year to just sort of better represent what it is that we do, which is to help these project-centric companies sort of automate and control processes across the board. So in 2007, we were building off of Microsoft Dynamics AX. And at that time, AX had project accounting, but no real project management in the system. So we saw the gap for these enterprises deploying AX that needed project management, and they needed it to be a substantial part of their system. So we started building that. And so we made that sort of first system on AX before Microsoft ever did anything regarding project management inside Microsoft Dynamics. So we were actually the first project management application on AX. So this sort of through the years, we've been building this sort of embedded project management system for Dynamics, and we have been developing it ever since from the perspective of our customers. So since we created the first product, we've just been building and building based on our customer feedback, based on those requests. So the solution's really driven by their needs and sort of helping us define exactly what our EPM solution should be. And so at the same time, we've also then been developing as a partner. So originally we were just more of an ISV, and we've, offering this product as a standalone product for AX. But we've evolved since then into a full partner because we realized that, moving from all the siloed tools and applications of, having your own project management application or, estimating tool or, all these different spreadsheets that most people use for managing projects in these separate silos. Going from that into an ERP system to do all that is a big deal. And so just giving them a product isn't enough. It's actually, we need to help them move from where they are today to where they should be in the holistic connected system. So we become a full partner to help do that. And that's just helping realize our sort of customers' ambitions as far as, bringing everything together for them in the same system.
Yeah. And I'd love to get into some of this sort of overlay or sort of the bird's eye view of where the ERP and the enterprise project management sort of touch each other and how they work together. But before that, again, maybe to sort of lay a bit more of the foundational understanding here. Can you describe project management and enterprise project management and what the differences are and how enterprise project management really serves businesses differently?
There's a lot of aspects to it. I mean, project management has been around for a long time, obviously, and the tools to do that have been around a long time too. Microsoft Project, Oracle P6, and tons of project management tools out there. So traditionally, project management, the project management function sort of stays in a silo and it doesn't really interact technically with the rest of the business. So, a typical workflow might be, you have a scheduling tool and you make the schedule and you do something there and then you export that into Excel. Then you email that over to, the finance team. The finance team enters it into the ERP or into some other budget spreadsheet that eventually gets uploaded into the ERP. And so it's a very manual, convoluted process, but the PM function is sort of treated like its own sort of separate function. So that makes it very difficult, obviously, then to manage projects as a business. The schedule isn't included in the ERP. The financial side of the projects is often it's in the ERP. It's in a very limited state. It's hard to do estimation and costing in the ERP. So, these traditional setups that are spreadsheet heavy, you're keeping track of all these different things in different places. So that's sort of the traditional way of doing it. And PM is just project management just is treated as its own function. Enterprise project management, in contrast, really brings projects into the fold. So it basically starts to integrate all of its functions and processes with the rest of the business. So including finance and your supply chain, your production, your HR and resource management and all those things. So yes, it includes all those project management, traditional siloed project management functions, including scheduling, estimating, costing, risk management, resource management. But we're bringing that now in context with the rest of these business functions and business processes. So when you, for example, change things in your supply chain schedule, let's say you're ordering something for a project. So like an ETO manufacturer, they might have a product that they're delivering to a customer, and that product requires, certain material. And that material needs to arrive at a certain time in order to keep the project moving and deliver the product on time. But if that material, say, gets delayed in a traditional setup, you really don't know about that unless somebody calls you from procurement or, calls up the project manager and says, oh, hey, something's not going to be here. And usually that doesn't happen until the day it's supposed to be there, and it's not. And so there's this huge, sort of delay factor, and problems just escalate throughout the project, and they snowball because of that. Well, with EPM, the whole idea is that everything's connected. Everything can be basically connected in real time. So when that delay happens in procurement, that immediately shows up on the project schedule. The project manager knows about it right away so that they can immediately take action and say, okay, maybe we need to call this vendor, see if we can get it expedited. Do we call a new vendor? Or can we push out the schedule a little bit and take up some slack from somewhere else? There's lots of options that you can do if you know about it. So knowledge is key. So having all these connections across the different aspects of the business is really core to EPM and what it's all about. So in this way, sort of projects sort of become the core of the enterprise systems, because basically projects is how these companies make money. It's super critical that they put projects at the center, because if they don't deliver on their projects, they don't make money. So that's the core business for these companies, these project-centered companies. So that's what EPM is all about, bringing that all together so projects actually do sit at the core of their business functions instead of outside.
That all makes sense. I mean, I think that some of those fundamental sort of needs kind of seem logical, at least when you describe them at a high level. But what does it really take to deliver a true EPM solution?
I guess technically, got to have an ERP, right? Because that is sort of the business system that we're all tied to. So if you've got an ERP, then you need essentially an EPM system integrated with that ERP in such a way that it can do what I just described. It can connect everything across the different disciplines, across the different processes and functions inside the ERP. So you can manage every aspect of your projects in conjunction with all the other aspects. Now, that's, of course, easier said than done. You do need, an ERP powerful enough to do that. You also need an EPM solution that's powerful enough to manage projects like that in an ERP. So traditionally, in project management, you might have, one of the reasons is that, it stays siloed is because of the project management applications themselves. Project managers are very tied to them. They're great tools and they work really well for their specific discipline. So when you're scheduling a project and all the different aspects of that, of scheduling a project can be very detailed, complicated, and have very complex natures as far as, say, your network setup and how you start tasks and finish tasks and how they all line up, what's your critical path, and how all this gets actually managed as a project. So when you move into a SaaS world project management tool, typically that has not been as powerful as these desktop tools that these project managers are used to. So project managers are also want to hang on to those project scheduling tools that work really well for them. But at the same time, they're disconnected from the business. So you need a system, an EPM system that is powerful enough to manage projects like these traditional desktop applications, but can still have all that seamless connections across all the other areas, just like in a SaaS platform with your ERP. So that's sort of the key thing here, is that the technology has to be there in order to deliver that. And then the other side of that is, from like I said earlier, from a services side, it's really difficult to go from where they are today to where they, should be in a centralized system. So you got to have some help probably with that to, bring people along from an adoption standpoint, but also just familiarizing them with what is possible now in a completely connected system. We've had customers where, they were kind of skeptical at first that this could be done. And they also thought they would just continue to use their outside tools. But when, the top management came down and said, no, we need to everybody use this because, this connects everything in our business. And so that now we can actually have visibility into what's going on. Then 6 months later, or 12 months later, we heard, okay, this is great now because we understand, we finally get it that, all this can be done in the same system. Whereas before they just didn't believe it. So there's quite a bit there to, go into for those types of companies. But like I said, it's easier said than done. But those who tackle it really see the benefits later on.
Yeah. And as I think I understand it, there's not one way to tackle some of these challenges and get the results that these kinds of businesses need. Can you talk a little bit more about how PlanAutomate approaches this and maybe contrast it with what people might know from Microsoft's out-of-the-box products?
So yes, of course, the EPM system is what we provide. Microsoft, of course, does offer project operations today. And most of the other applications for Dynamics that you might see out there are built off of this foundation. Now, project operations, I will say, is probably fine for some companies. I'd caveat it toward, these companies with simple projects, kind of shorter in duration, not as complex, and mostly just professional services. So it can work very well for them. Unfortunately, there are some substantial sort of limitations in project operations that preclude many enterprises using it from fully getting that EPM capability. This might include things like inadequate scheduling, the fact that there's no sort of budget dedicated cost breakdown structure for your budgets. So you have to use, your work breakdown structure for your budgets. So in reality, the customer using this tool might still get stuck managing their projects offline in different tools and spreadsheets in order to accommodate that fact. So with our platform, with EPM, we're trying to, since we were basically the first project management application for Dynamics, we basically start off the customer with an essential project management package for basically the same price as project operations. And then when we do that, we can then add on industry kits for example, for architecture, engineering, construction, or ETO manufacturing, or professional services. And then we also put on these advanced feature packages. So you have the options to sort of grow the functionality the more you need it. And so it's very flexible. So the other aspect of this, though, is also working sort of in the traditional manner with Microsoft or generalist partners who naturally are just going to offer the project operations by default, and customers don't really know any better at that point. So that's why we've sort of turned ourselves into a full Microsoft Dynamics partner to resolve this, so that customers can now come to us from the very start, get the full stack of Dynamics delivered along with your EPM system. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a full service partner with the most advanced project technology stack available for Dynamics. And so you get a system that's both powerful and flexible with PlanAutomate, and truly help them get into this EPM sort of level. So there's a lot more, obviously, that can go into this. But having just said that, we think that most project-centered companies need some sort of EPM. So the difference that we're trying to articulate here is that EPM is holistic, comprehensive. It should be able to basically handle all of your processes and data in one system. And if it can't, you need something more. And that's where a lot of customers come to us from, is when they realize that. So PlanAutomate's sort of just here to make sure that, customers can get what they need in one single system.
Yeah, and it's such a great topic. I mean, and there's probably a lot more to talk about down the road with, between us. But one thing I've kind of learned from watching the industry a little bit, I certainly don't have that deep level of understanding of EPM systems, but there's a lot more value out there I've taken to understand in a lot of these industries that these businesses really have struggled to get out of them. And perhaps that's a conversation for a future episode or webcast or something like that. But it's so interesting to hear how, and maybe we'll learn more about this, how PlanAutomate has sort of evolved its approach to do the services work alongside the customer, as well as delivering the technology, because you can really see how critical it is to bring that together.
It is. And it's something that we're really excited about into the future, because, like I said, we've evolved over the years. And originally we didn't do any of that services work, several years ago. But since we started doing it, our customers and our success stories are just so much better because of this, because we're the experts in a sense, not just with our own product, but with projects in general. That's who we hire too, is, project people, from these industries that we serve. So super important that we have that expertise in-house before we even teach them about Dynamics and our own products, because then they can go talk to the customer and know exactly what they're talking about and actually relate with them on their level.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Matt, it's been great getting a chance to at least kind of understand more about where PlanAutomate comes from and what your plans are and how you're working today. I know we also have an on-demand webcast that you recently did for our audience and a related article. So plenty of more materials. We'll link out to them all. But thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Been a pleasure.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Matt for joining me. And for more information on PlanAutomate, visit planautomate.com. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.